Next on Currents News, another delay for the DOE as the mayor and school officials say more time and staff are needed to make the hybrid model work. Also tonight, mixed messaging. President Trump is not seeing eye to eye with his top health officials over face masks and the timing of a vaccine. And we check in with Catholic churches in the hurricane zone after Sally ravaged so many communities down south. Also, we'll show you how Catholic Charities is working to boost the census in New York neighborhoods where it is vital that everyone is counted. Currents News starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichette. Back to school for New York City public schools is being delayed once again. Under pressure from teachers' unions, Mayor Bill de Blasio made the call to push back in-person learning for all grades above pre-K. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the details on when students will be back in class. Monday was the day many students, parents, and teachers had been waiting for. After 6 months, New York City public schools would have their first day of in-person learning, but it was once again delayed.
Real concerns have been raised by my colleagues about specific things that had to be done to make sure our schools could start effectively, start safely.
This is the second delay for in-school learning for the Department of Education. This time it was due to safety and efficiency issues raised by the teachers union and schools chancellor Richard Carranza.
And we're giving schools more staff, more time, and more support, and this helps us to have the strongest possible start to the most unconventional school year any of us have ever experienced.
The reopening will now happen in phases. Pre-K and special needs students will start on Monday as planned. Elementary school students start on September 29th, and middle and high school students on October 1st.
We need to step back. We need to figure out a couple of things. We now have seen after a 10-day period that there are some blanks that we have to fill in, and we're going to do that.
Though 42% of all public school students opted for an all-virtual school year, the DOE needs 10,000 teachers to successfully manage a hybrid model. The city is still 5,500 short. Catholic schools throughout the city also recognize the need for more staff immediately. At Our Lady of Sorrows Catholic Academy in Corona, Queens, they've added teachers to every classroom.
We have a teacher assistant in the overflow room, and so while she's teaching the lesson, the teacher assistant is actually walking around ensuring that those kids are learning exactly what she's doing.
This delay comes as the DOE announces at least 56 schools have had one or more confirmed cases of COVID-19 among staff. In Park Slope, Jessica Easthope, Currents News. Meanwhile, the first day of remote learning for some New York City school children is getting a failing grade from parents. Wednesday was day one for those who chose to have their children learn at home. But a number of families faced some issues, including trouble logging in and not being able to get in touch with teachers. And one Brooklyn mother told the New York Post that her daughter's online class was hijacked by hackers who flooded the channel with porn and pictures of President Trump. Also, parents learned this week that some remote classes will not be taught in real time. Instead, lessons will be pre-recorded. The number of Americans applying for unemployment dropped last week. The decline signals a gradual improvement in the job market. In the week ending September 12th, 860,000 people filed a claim. That's a drop of 33,000. Labor Department figures put the number of unemployed at 12.6 million. Almost less than a million from the week before. Now to the pandemic and what appears to be mixed messaging over the effectiveness of face masks and exactly when a COVID-19 vaccine will be available. President Trump and his top health officials don't seem to be on the same page. Nick Valencia reports.
President Trump undermining his own CDC director, claiming Dr. Robert Redfield's timeline for a vaccine is incorrect.
I think he made a mistake when he said that. It's just incorrect information. And I called him, and he didn't tell me that, and I think he got the message maybe confused. Maybe it was stated incorrectly. No, we're ready to go immediately as the vaccine is announced.
But Redfield was very clear when he testified under oath in a Senate hearing Wednesday, and his vaccine timeline is consistent with most health experts.
I think there will be vaccine that initially be available sometime between November and December. If you're asking me when is it going to be generally available to the American public so we can begin to take advantage of vaccine to get back to our regular life, I think we're probably looking at late second quarter, third quarter, 2021.
After Trump's comments, the CDC releasing a statement seeming to back his claims. Writing Redfield was referring to, quote, the time period in which all Americans would have completed their COVID vaccination. He was not referring to the time period when COVID-19 vaccine doses would be made available to all Americans. The inconsistent messaging coming from the White House only adding to the lack of trust in the vaccine process. Joe Biden making clear he's putting his faith in the science.
Let me be clear. I trust vaccines, I trust scientists, but I don't trust Donald Trump.
Still, the president continues to claim a vaccine is likely to be approved next month or soon after and will be made available to the general public almost immediately, something even one of his top health advisors disputes.
As I said, the high priority people will have in sometime no later than January. I mean, of course, it depends on when things are approved. And then there's anticipated that there will be 700 million doses by end of Q1.
The president claiming Redfield was also confused when discussing the efficacy of masks.
Face masks, these face masks are the most important, powerful public health tool we have.
I think there's a lot of problems with masks. No, vaccine is much more effective than the masks.
That was Nick Valencia reporting. While Dr. Redfield has not directly responded to the president's comments, he did later send a tweet reinforcing the importance of face masks. President Trump also took a swipe at Democrats during that press conference, blaming blue states for increasing the nation's COVID death rate.
The blue states had tremendous death rates. If you take the blue states out, we're at a level that I don't think anybody in the world would be at. We're really at a very low level.
The president's words angering Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. He gave his response during today's session.
Yes, Mr. President, if you don't count the total number of Americans who have died, you might think it's not so bad. If you close your eyes and pretend that half of the country doesn't exist, maybe some might think you didn't do such a spectacularly awful job. What a disgrace!
New York was one of those blue states with the highest number of coronavirus deaths, but New York is also one of the states with the largest populations and one of the first to experience the outbreak. A top leader at the World Health Organization is sounding the alarm on the coronavirus crisis in Europe.
We do have a very serious situation unfolding before us. Weekly cases have now exceeded those reported when the pandemic first peaked in Europe in March.
Dr. Hans Klug went on to say that more than half of European countries have reported a more than 10% increase in new cases in the past 2 weeks. Pharma companies Pfizer and BioNTech are expanding, buying a new production plant in order to make more of their COVID vaccine currently being developed. The new plant in Germany will allow them to produce tens of millions more vaccine doses a month, pending regulatory approval. The building is expected to be up and running by the first half of 2021. 2 priests serving in the Latin parish in the war-torn Syrian city of Aleppo have died from COVID-19. In all, 4 out of the 5 Franciscan friars working in the Latin parish there tested positive for the virus. The priest who did not get sick called it providence, as it allowed him to care for the 2 priests who survived, as well as keeping the parish up and running. In China, hundreds of thousands of people are getting COVID-19 vaccinations under an emergency use program. China's state-owned pharmaceutical company says it inoculated high-risk groups and medical professionals. The company, Sinopharm, is currently developing 2 COVID vaccines, and both are in phase 3 clinical trials. Chinese health officials say the public may be able to start taking the vaccine as early as November if those trials go well. A new report confirms that Chinese hackers targeted the Vatican. After a months-long probe, cybersecurity investigators revealed this week that state-sponsored hackers attempted to infiltrate Vatican computer networks. This happening just weeks before a provisional agreement between China and the Holy See was due to be renewed. The analysis said that hackers continued to focus on the Vatican and other Catholic organizations even after their activities were uncovered back in July. The stakes are high for communities across New York to be properly counted in the census. The once-a-decade event is the measure for everything from representation to federal dollars for social programs. Catholic Charities is doing its part to boost turnout. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story from the Highbridge section of the Bronx.
Let's make Highbridge count!
Every 10 years, the census aims to count the entire U.S. population, but it's not an easy task.
Fill out your census here!
It's estimated 4 million Americans won't be counted in the 2020 census, even though legislative representation and billions of dollars in federal funding are at stake. Catholic Charities of New York is looking to close that gap.
Now more than ever, how New York was hit, we need to make sure that we get the COVID support 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line.
On Wednesday, Catholic Charities joined forces with several community organizations in the Highbridge section of the Bronx to boost census turnout. In the Bronx, just over 60% of households have filled out the census. Organizers say that's a failing grade. But by making their presence known, they drew in people like Kelly Woods.
Thank you.
Kelly used to be homeless, but after landing on her feet, she understands how important the census is and is participating for the first time.
It can better us, our lifestyles and our environment, jobs.
Low census turnout isn't only a problem in the Bronx, it's citywide. In the Diocese of Immigrants, 60.6% of Queens households have filled out the census. And Brooklyn has the worst numbers in the entire city, with 56.6%. Areas with high numbers of undocumented immigrants have historically low turnouts. Organizers say it's because they fear it will impact their immigration status. That was the case for Matilda Gonzalez.
We always be like behind the door, like scared to do things. So it's time now that we count.
Not only is the census a matter of getting proper funding, organizers say it's a Catholic issue.
For us as Catholics, it's an issue of fairness and participation in civic life.
We as Catholics always want to do right by people. We want to do right by our neighbor. So this is the way to do right by your neighbors.
Catholic Charities expected to get 350 new households to fill out the census Wednesday. The deadline is September 30th. In Highbridge, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way, how Catholic parishes weathered Hurricane Sally and how you can help those whose lives have been turned upside down by the powerful storm. Also, a nearly century-old statue of Christ is desecrated, and now the local parish is hoping to raise enough money to have it repaired. And boom or bust for Brooklyn, the impact the pandemic is having on New York real estate. A top-selling agent in the city breaks it down for us.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
Hurricane Sally was on a warpath on Wednesday, tearing through the Gulf Coast and unleashing buckets of rainfall. Dioceses down there are praying for their people and for their church, hoping God will help protect them, their homes, and their houses of worship. Currents News' Emily Drewby has the latest.
At least one person is dead and another missing after Hurricane Sally ripped through Alabama and Florida.
The winds were high. It was whistling like I never heard anything before.
Areas still plagued by downed trees and power lines, while many homes are still floating in floodwaters caused by record-breaking rainfall.
We're shoveling water out of our screened-in porch. Our dam didn't break or anything. It's just seeping in from the bottom.
It's really upsetting me because, you know, this is my home, and I don't want to lose my home.
In Alabama, rescue and recovery continues, with many roads and bridges still impassable.
Our state is reeling just as our people are hurting.
The Archdiocese of Mobile, Alabama closed their doors and offices in preparation for the storm, leaving them unreachable. In Florida, the Diocese of Pensacola, Tallahassee had some damage to their churches, sending Currents News photos of flooding, downed trees, and destroyed structures. Many of their churches have been left without power, and several services have been suspended until they can recover. Their diocese trying to regroup while still being left in the dark. While plans have yet to be formalized, they'll be helping their local churches as soon as they can. Also in Florida, hundreds were rescued from high waters with aid from 500 Florida National Guard soldiers.
We had 30 inches of rain in Pensacola, 30 plus inches of rain, which is 4 months of rain in 4 hours at some point. So it is very bad, severe.
Sally may have passed through, but the danger isn't over. Florida's governor warning any body of water in northwest Florida could see a rise in levels over the next few days because of Sally. And Sally isn't stopping, already dumping large amounts of rain in parts of Georgia and the Carolinas on Thursday, where flooding fears are also on the rise. Emily Druby, Currents News.
If you would like to help those affected by the wildfires, hurricanes, and any other recent natural disasters, you can go to donate at CatholicCharitiesUSA.org. Again, that's CatholicCharitiesUSA.org. A nearly 100-year-old image of Christ is shattered, and tonight a suspect is in custody. 30-year-old Isaiah Cantrell has been arrested for criminal mischief and possession of marijuana. El Paso police say he attacked the Jesus statue at St. Patrick's Cathedral early Tuesday morning when the church was open for private prayer. When asked why he smashed the statue, Cantrell allegedly said the image had the wrong skin color, reportedly remarking Jesus was Jewish and therefore should be a darker skin color. The Diocese of El Paso has set up a fund in order to rebuild the $25,000 statue. To donate, you may either call the offices of the fund at 915-872-8412 or make a check care of the Office of the Foundation for the Diocese of El Paso and send that to 499 St. Matthews Street in El Paso. The zip code there is 79907. The real estate market in Manhattan took a big hit because of the pandemic, many deciding to move out of such a crowded city. But we're hearing the coronavirus crisis had the opposite effect on another borough. Bianca D'Alessio is a real estate agent here in the city and is part of $1 Million Listing, Ryan Serhant's Nest Seekers International Real Estate team. She joins us now. And Bianca, we've all heard about or even know someone who decided to move out of Manhattan during the height of the pandemic. Many just assumed they moved to the suburbs, but you're saying that wasn't always the case.
Definitely not always the case. We are feeling so much activity right now in Brooklyn. There's no doubt that buyers are looking in the suburbs right now, but we're seeing that they're more just so looking, and they're actually settling in Brooklyn. I think people are just looking for a change of pace. They're looking for a little bit more space, but at the end of the day, they want to be close to home, and New York City is their home, and people are seeing a lot of value in different Brooklyn neighborhoods right now.
Now, we've also heard reports of people moving out of Brooklyn. Is that not the case?
There's certainly some people that are moving out of Brooklyn, but most of the people that are moving in Brooklyn are upgrading their spaces. A lot of people don't have to go back to work for quite some time. So in Brooklyn, they can afford to stretch for that 2-bedroom or the 3-bedroom or get something with a home office. So we're seeing a lot of Brooklyn residents actually stay put, maybe expand a little further out into different Brooklyn neighborhoods and get some more space.
All right, there's still around 2.5 million people living in Brooklyn. It seems just as crowded as Manhattan, but what does Brooklyn have to offer that Manhattan does not, and why is it any better?
Well, I love Manhattan just as much as I love Brooklyn, but in Brooklyn, it's just totally a different vibe. It feels more residential. It feels more like a community. You could go into your coffee shop and they know your name. That's just not something that we see throughout Manhattan. There's also a ton more green space and parks and the waterfront, which is booming. There's so much vibrancy. Whereas Manhattan now has all of these restaurants that are coming onto the street for the first time, and it's really exciting. Brooklyn has always had this incredible outdoor dining aspect throughout all of the neighborhoods, and it just really feels a lot more residential, but people could also upgrade their finishes and their quality of life when moving to Brooklyn. Most buyers in Manhattan who at certain price points can't afford new development in Brooklyn can afford to be in a brand new building with amazing finishes and a great amenity package that they just can't get in the Manhattan. So they're really elevating their actual living environment.
Wow, okay. You know, there's a new survey from the Siena College Research Institute and Manhattan Institute that says nearly half of New York City residents earning 6 figures or more have thought about leaving the Big Apple. So who is moving out? Are they families? Are they young professionals?
That doesn't surprise me at all. I think it's been a fleeting thought in everyone's mind during all of this. I think a lot of the families that moving out of the city, it was in their 3 to 5 year plan. It got condensed into a 3 to 6 month period. And so the people who were always planning on moving out have moved out. It's just expedited their plans. But young professionals are not leaving. Young families are not leaving that have 1 or 2 children and can still live and homeschool in an apartment. I think that's everyone's biggest fear right now. How with 3 children do I homeschool my kids in an apartment? But the young professionals who need to go back to work, single people who are looking to be out and to be at the restaurants and the bars and meet other people, they're not leaving the city. New York has so much to offer.
Right. Now, do you think this Manhattan exodus is temporary? Will the real estate market bounce back?
It sure will. It always does. We've seen this a few times before. But New York always comes back. I think in the next few years, it's going to be a really good buying opportunity right now for people. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing opportunistic buyers. We're even seeing people who are coming from the suburbs who are able to take advantage of an incredible seller's market in Westchester and Long Island and are like, what better market to park my money into right now? Because there will be that upside potential throughout New York City.
All right, Bianca D'Alessio, licensed real estate agent. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Be well.
Still to come on Currents News, Archbishop Georg Ganswein is released from the hospital. What the personal secretary to Pope Emeritus Benedict is telling all those who prayed for him. And inspirational words. Bruce Springsteen speaks to the incoming class at the Jesuit-run Boston College. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. A Capuchin friar, known as the spiritual son of St. Padre Pio, could be on the road to sainthood. Italian Archbishop Franco Mosconi has opened the cause for beatification of Brother Modestino da Pietrelcina. He died in 2011. The Archdiocese will now collect as much information as possible about Brother Modestino's life and any evidence of his sanctity, which it will then present to the Congregation for the Causes of the Saints in Rome. Pope Benedict's secretary is out of the hospital and at home recovering. Archbishop Georg Ganswein was hospitalized because of kidney problems. He will be under observation for a while, but is doing better. He thanked everyone for their prayers for his health, saying he was grateful. The 64-year-old has worked with the Pope Emeritus as his personal secretary since 2003. And finally tonight, from the secretary to the boss.
You will spend your next 4 years living in a place where the life of the mind is paramount. The life of the mind is a beautiful thing. Along with your spiritual life, it's the apotheosis of human experience.
Bruce Springsteen had some encouraging words for the incoming freshman at Boston College. His son is a graduate of the Catholic College. Bruce urged them not to waste the next 4 years, which you could call their glory days. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.